We are still continuing 2.7, talking about our absolute value functions. For the belt problem, we have to figure out the vertex and the axis of symmetry. So go ahead and figure that out. Remember, we normally start at 0, 0, but we have stuff added or subtracted, so we have to move our vertex from 0, 0. You should have determined that our vertex is -4, -2, and our axis of symmetry is x equals -4. So we're going to be discussing a couple more of the transformations that we have discussed previously, but with absolute values. So again, if the number out front of your x, the absolute value of x term, is greater than 1, the absolute value, because it could be negative, it will be a stretch. So if I had y equals 3 absolute value of x, this would be considered a stretch. And a shrink, or most time we'll call it compression, will be anytime your absolute value of the number up front of x is less than 1. So it's going to be a fraction, remember? So if we have y equals 1/2 the absolute value of x. So those are a couple more transformations we can discuss. Another one is our reflection. So remember, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Whenever the number out front of our absolute value is negative, we will have a reflection, or our graph will open down. It's called a reflection on the x-axis. So our graph will open down instead of open up. Don't really worry about all of this extra mumbo jumbo. If it is negative out front of your absolute value, our graph will open down. So we have to graph these and determine all of our transformations. So if we look, y equals 1/2 x is our first one. So we first start by plotting our vertex. Notice how there's nothing added or subtracted. So we're still going to have our vertex at 0, 0. So our vertex is at 0, 0. And then we have our axis of symmetry. Always the x value of your vertex, so x equals 0. And then if you notice, now we have a number other than 1 out front of our absolute value. So that is our new slope. So we're going to go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and the same thing on the other side, up 1 over 2. Once you have all your points plotted, go ahead and connect them together. And if you notice, this is called a shrink because we're shrinking our graph or compressing it. So since, again, this is a fraction out front, this would be a vertical compression. Since it is a fraction, we have a compression. Then if we go over to B, notice again we have nothing added or subtracted, so our vertex will still stay at 0, 0. So these two are the same. But now we have a slope of -3. Again, whenever we have slope, we need to put that in fraction form, so don't forget to move left to right, up and down. So, since it is negative, we're going to go down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, and same thing on the other side, down 3 over 1, graph your points, connect them together. Okay, so a couple transformations. Since it is open up down, that means we reflected it, so as a reflection. And since our number out front of x is greater than 1, if we took the absolute value of it, it will be a stretch. So the transformation is done. We have stretch and we have reflection. Next, we have y equals -2x plus 3. Okay, so we have something added or subtracted, so we got to move our vertex. Since it is not grouped inside our absolute value, we're going to go up 3, which then makes our vertex 0, 3. We didn't move our x at all. And then that makes our axis of symmetry x equals 0. And then we got to look to plot our points. We have -2 out front, make that a fraction. So we have -2 over 1. So we're going down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Same thing on both sides. Plot a couple points on each side and connect your points. And you're done graphing. Now a couple transformations. So if I ever ask for transformations, There will be a couple on this one. So if you notice, we moved our vertex. We moved it up 3, so that's 1. It's open down, so that's a reflection. And then the number is greater than 1 up front, so that is a stretch. So the 3 transformations of this graph are up 3, reflection, and vertical stretch. Come to class ready to graph tomorrow.